Cold kills the culture, fermented foods in danger. You step into the kitchen, open the refrigerator, and reach for your sauerkraut. It's tucked in the corner, sealed tight, chilled and ready. But what if that cold, clean environment, the very one you trust to preserve your food, is slowly killing what makes that sauerkraut special in the first place? You may have heard that fermented foods are good for your gut. And they are, if their bacterial cultures are still alive. But here's the problem: cold can silence life. Fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, and natto are packed with beneficial bacteria, living cultures that help maintain your gut lining, regulate inflammation, and even produce vitamins like B12 and K. But these microbes are sensitive. Refrigeration slows their activity to the point where they go dormant, or worse, degrade. In ancient times, fermentation wasn't meant to be cold. In fact, it thrived in cellars, earthen crocks, and shaded corners of warm kitchens. Sauerkraut, for example, was traditionally stored in large ceramic jars, kept slightly cool but never icy. In 18th century Eastern Europe, fermented cabbage lined root cellars, bubbling gently with life, preserved by salt, not suppression. Those families didn't just eat for flavor. They ate for survival. Their gut health was maintained not by pills or powders, but by living foods. Today, in our sterile kitchen rituals, we often trade tradition for convenience. We put kimchi in the fridge the moment we open it. We buy pasteurized miso that's been stored below 40 degrees for months. And then we wonder why our digestion feels sluggish, our joints feel stiff, or our moods swing unexpectedly. But you already know the answer: your gut is missing living input. Imagine this. You buy a jar of raw sauerkraut. On day one, it fizzes gently when opened. Its scent is sharp, its taste alive. You eat a spoonful, and your stomach feels lighter, your mind clearer. But then you refrigerate it. 3 weeks later, the smell dulls. The fizz fades. It's not spoiled, but it's sleeping. And sleeping cultures don't support your digestion the same way. This isn't about throwing out your fridge. It's about knowing what not to hide inside it. Now let's talk about miso. Miso is a fermented paste made from soybeans, barley, or rice. In medieval Japan, miso was aged in wooden barrels and kept at ambient temperature for months. It was alive. It continued to ferment slowly, building richness, complexity, and microbial diversity. But modern miso? It's often refrigerated, pasteurized, and stripped of the very organisms that once made it a healing food. You might be thinking, but isn't refrigeration safer? Not always. In fact, over-refrigeration of fermented foods can reduce probiotic diversity, especially when those foods are stored in airtight, commercial packaging. What you gain in shelf life, you lose in vitality. Here's a quirky fact: in 19th century rural Korea, kimchi was often stored underground in clay pots during the winter, but only deep enough to prevent freezing. The idea wasn't to make it cold. It was to maintain an optimal living environment, even through harsh seasons. Grandmothers didn't own thermometers, but they knew that if the pot got too cold, the fermentation would stall. The flavor would flatten. The gut benefits would pause. So what can you do today? Keep small batches of fermented foods at room temperature, especially when homemade. Let sauerkraut breathe. Store miso in cool cabinets, not cold fridges, if it's unpasteurized. Observe. Taste. Feel the difference. Let your kitchen become not just a place of preservation, but a space of participation in a living process. Some people worry, will it spoil if I don't refrigerate it? Not if you trust the process. Salt and acid do the preserving. Bacteria do the balancing. Mold and spoilage rarely grow in acidic, fermented environments, unless the balance has already been disturbed. Now, let's return to that fridge. It's not evil, but it has limits. Refrigeration is great for slowing rot. But fermentation isn't rot, it's transformation. And when you chill the agents of transformation, you pause the process your body depends on. You may not feel the difference overnight, but your gut knows. It speaks in fewer cramps, better sleep, a lighter mood, less swelling in your joints. And that's where the healing begins, not with pills, but with permission, to let your food live, so that you can live better. So what's next? In the next section, we'll shift our attention to something even sneakier, fruit. Yes, the kind you toss in the fridge without a second thought. You'll discover how that habit, though common, is interfering with the natural rhythm of digestion and enzyme release. And more importantly, you'll learn how to store smarter, eat fresher, and heal deeper. Fruit gone wrong, why the fridge fights nature. You walk into the kitchen and grab a banana from the fridge. It's cool, maybe even a little firm to the touch. You peel it open, expecting the same smooth texture and tropical flavor you know. But instead, it's grayish, mealy. Something's off. You chew it anyway, but your body feels it later. The truth is, your fridge may be damaging the very fruits you think are helping you. You see, fruits are living systems. Even after harvest, they continue to ripen, breathe, and shift internally. When you interrupt that natural rhythm, by exposing them to cold before they're ready, you don't just change the texture. You alter the enzyme structure, reduce nutrient availability, and, in some cases, trigger inflammatory responses once they reach your gut. Let's begin with one of the biggest offenders, bananas. Bananas are tropical by origin. Their enzymes are designed for warm climates. When stored below 12 degrees Celsius, is almost equal to 54 degrees Fahrenheit, their cellular walls begin to collapse. The skin darkens rapidly. But more importantly, the starch-to-sugar conversion is disrupted, which can leave you with a fruit that's both underripened and oddly sweet. It's a combination that confuses your digestion and increases fructose load in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's just the beginning. Mangoes, pineapple, papaya, avocados, they all carry the same tropical blueprint. Meant to ripen naturally, at room temperature, over time. But when you refrigerate them too early, you arrest their metabolic processes, making the nutrients harder to absorb and, ironically, increasing their potential to irritate the gut in sensitive individuals. In traditional Chinese medicine, these fruits are considered damp and cooling, and overconsumption, especially when cold, is said to disturb the body's inner balance. Today, we'd say, cold fruit weakens digestion in people with already sluggish metabolisms, a description that fits many older adults. And what happens when digestion falters? Fermentation in the gut, bloating, inflammation, poor nutrient absorption. And that vicious cycle continues until joints begin to ache, moods shift, and energy drains. Now, some fruits do fine in the fridge, but only after they're fully ripe. For example, berries can benefit from refrigeration short-term. But even they lose antioxidants like anthocyanins when kept too cold for too long. The fresher the fruit, the stronger its impact. Let's make this real. You store your apples in the fridge for 2 weeks. They don't rot, but they dry from the inside. When you eat them, they feel starchy, not juicy. The pectin, which feeds your gut microbes, is still there, but less active. Your gut notices, even if your taste buds don't. Or maybe you store watermelon in the fridge. Once cut, yes, it should be kept cold. But whole. Let it ripen on the counter. Why? Because lycopene, an anti-inflammatory antioxidant, increases as the melon sits at room temp. When you chill it too early, you halt that process, robbing your joints of a powerful nutrient ally. And here's the historical angle: in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, fruits were stored in clay jars, kept in shade but not ice. Their temperatures fluctuated naturally through the day. That fluctuation allowed continued ripening and flavor development. There were no crispers, no humidity controls, but still, people thrived. Today, we chase convenience. We throw fruit in the fridge before it ripens, fearing spoilage more than imbalance. But food doesn't spoil when it's respected. It spoils when it's neglected, or when nature is ignored. So what can you do instead? Here are simple, gut and joint-friendly fruit strategies. Bananas, mangoes, avocados, pineapple. Ripen fully at room temperature before refrigerating. Or don't refrigerate at all, eat them fresh, as intended. Apples and pears can be stored cold once ripe, but bring them to room temp before eating to restore texture and enzyme activity. Berries, buy small quantities. Eat within 3 days. If keeping longer, freeze instead of refrigerate to preserve antioxidants. Citrus, best stored in cool pantries, not deep fridges. Melons, keep whole melons on the counter. Only chill once cut. And here's something powerful: pair fruits with warming elements. A dash of cinnamon on apples. A spoon of yogurt with berries. These combinations ground your digestion and buffer the sugar hit, a trick used in Ayurvedic and Mediterranean diets for centuries. Still worried about food safety? That's valid. But remember, ripening is not rotting. Learn the signs. Touch. Smell. Observe. Reconnect with the rhythm your ancestors lived by. Your joints don't want perfect-looking fruit. They want metabolically active, properly ripened, enzyme-rich nourishment. And your fridge? It can wait. So what's coming next? In the final section, we'll reveal a list of foods that lose their healing power in the cold, even though they're shelf-stable by nature. You'll discover why olive oil, honey, and other pantry staples should never be chilled, and how traditional kitchens got it right long before electricity came along. You'll leave with a new respect for storage, and a revived connection to your food's purpose, not just to fill, but to heal. The forgotten warm shelf. What to store naturally. You may think your fridge is the safest place for all things edible. It's clean. It's cold. It's modern. But some of the most powerful healing foods don't just prefer to stay out of the fridge, they lose their potency when you put them in. Take a step back in time. Before refrigeration. Your great-grandparents didn't panic over warm pantries. They stored olive oil, honey, root vegetables, and vinegar-based ferments in cellars, cabinets, or clay jars. Their kitchens were organized not by shelf-life labels, but by knowledge of natural stability. And they lived by it. Now fast forward to your kitchen today. You might be refrigerating things that never needed it, and by doing so, you may be compromising your gut and joint health without even realizing it. Let's start with one of the most misunderstood. Olive oil. Rich in monounsaturated fats, antioxidants, and polyphenol, olive oil is a cornerstone of anti-inflammatory diets. But when you store it in the fridge, something unfortunate happens. It clouds up, thickens, and can even lose some aromatic compounds. While the oil may not be spoiled, its flavor profile and bioactive richness can be dulled. In traditional Mediterranean households, olive oil is kept in dark glass bottles, sealed tightly, and stored at room temperature in cool, shaded areas. No fridge. No freezing. Just respect for the balance between temperature and potency. Now think about honey. Raw honey, in particular, is a natural antimicrobial and gut soother. But place it in the fridge. It crystallizes quickly, loses its smooth texture, and can even undergo unwanted moisture shifts that degrade its natural enzymes. Historical reference. In ancient Egypt, honey wasn't just a food, it was a preservative used in burial rituals, medicine, and healing salves. It lasted for years without refrigeration. Modern refrigeration, ironically, makes it worse, not better. Next up, nut butters. You might be refrigerating your almond butter, peanut butter, or tahini out of habit or fear of spoilage. But unless it's completely natural and unsalted, refrigeration can harden the texture, separate the oils, and even make it harder for your body to digest the healthy fats. And again, your fridge isn't extending life here, it's flattening function. The same applies to breads made with live cultures, like sourdough. Cold temperatures halt fermentation prematurely, harden the crust unnaturally, and reduce their digestibility. In many European traditions, bread is stored in linen bags or wooden boxes, not plastic wrapped in the fridge. Let's talk about garlic and onions, too. Both of these are natural antimicrobials, rich in sulfur compounds like allicin that support detoxification and immunity. But when stored in the fridge, they sprout faster, mold sooner, and lose their punch. Cool, dry, dark pantries are their rightful homes, not refrigerated drawers. And here's a quirky historical fact: in pre-electricity Japan, daikon radish was stored underground or in woven baskets, wrapped in newspaper or cloth. The reason? To maintain moisture without suppressing enzyme activity. Today, we wrap everything in plastic and toss it in the fridge, suffocating the living components of our food. Now, I'm not saying never refrigerate anything. But I am saying, be wise about what you do refrigerate. Here's a quick list of foods better stored outside the fridge. Olive oil, honey, garlic and onions. Nut butters, unless instructed otherwise. Avocados, before ripe. Uncut melons. Sourdough and other live-culture breads. Vinegar. Based hot sauces or ferments. So what's the impact on your joints and digestion? Every one of these foods contains natural oils, enzymes, or active compounds that support gut health, reduce inflammation, and provide steady energy. But when you suppress those benefits with unnecessary refrigeration, you lose the synergistic effect, the invisible teamwork that keeps your digestion strong and your joints protected. And you already know, a stable gut equals a calm immune system. A calm immune system equals less inflammation. Less inflammation equals less pain in your knees, hips, and hands. You feel it when you return to real food, real textures, real temperatures. You feel it when your meals don't just fill your stomach, they activate your healing. Your ancestors didn't need smart fridges. They needed smart habits. And now, so do you. So where do you go from here? Start by rethinking your fridge not as a one-size-fits-all vault, but as a tool, one that serves some foods and damages others. Start by creating a warm shelf zone in your kitchen. A place for olive oil, honey, garlic, a few bananas, a jar of sauerkraut fermenting quietly beside a window. Start by remembering that food is not meant to be sterile. It's meant to be alive. And when your food lives well, so do you. In the next piece, we'll go even deeper into how your gut's microbial diversity may be the single biggest predictor of aging well. You'll learn how the color of your food, the temperature of your plate, and the order you eat it in can help you build resilience from the inside out. Until then, keep listening to your gut, and give your fridge a break. It's time to let your food breathe.